Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today on the webinar. And it's certainly a webinar that's on a lot of people's lips at the moment. There's a lot of talk about, certainly with the EU and the UK and the divorce, if you like, and what you can and can't do. So what I want to do today is talk about everything you need to know about moving to Spain from the UK post-Brexit. And as I say, I'm sure a lot of you tuning in, it will be sort of trying to untangle what the rules now are. So what I'm going to try to do is make it as simple as I can for you. What I will say is there probably are going to be a lot of questions. I am more than happy to answer any questions. I think the easiest way will be for me to give my email to you, and obviously to email me any questions you have. More than happy to help, because it is such a complicated topic, and from living over here myself, I'm fully aware of all the different aspects of it that you need to be aware of. So I'm more than happy to answer anything after, and as I say, email me with that. So what I want to do first of all really is give you a bit of an introduction to Holborn, just so you know who we are and who I am, because obviously that's very important with this whole Brexit and understanding it. So first of all, with regards to Holborn, so I'll give you a bit of information on us as a company. We were established back in 1998. And the idea was really to provide financial advice for the global market. We're actually a UK company, but we started in Dubai. But I'm actually based here in our Spanish office, which is in Portobello, as some of you may know, is in the south of Spain. I actually live in Estepona, just down the road from the office too. But as I say, we operate worldwide. We've got offices in the UK, offices in Europe, in South Africa, in the Middle East, and in Southeast Asia. So we're all around the world, but my focus is very much on the European area, and I do have an extensive knowledge of Spain, not only through having to advise clients, but also through living here and actually having to go through so many processes myself. With regards to the sizes, we actually have over 20,000 clients worldwide, so we're a very large organization with a very big client base. But very important, we do have an excellent reputation within the industry. So where it comes to actually advising people or giving people information, then our reputation is incredibly good. And hopefully I can help answer some questions for you today. And what we do very much with all our clients is we actually have a long-term relationship. So for somebody like yourselves who may be in the UK looking to move over to Spain, not only do we help you with the process of doing that if you need to, but we can actually help you and advise you while you're here, which is obviously very important. We've won a number of industry awards, and you know, a lot of our business and a lot of how we do is referrals from people. So even yourself, if you know people that can't make this webinar, we're going to put it on our website probably in the next day or two. We've got a Spanish Holborn website, and you'll be able to rewatch it as well. Or if you want to go back through any information, you'll be able to do that. With regards to myself, we've got offices obviously here in Spain. As I said, I moved over to Spain about 5 years ago, which was very different. Moving to Spain, it was dare I say, a lot easier than what it is now. Possibly the days of doing what I did at the time have gone. However, it's certainly something you can do. It's just being aware of how to do it. My own experience is I actually worked in the UK for around 23 years giving financial advice. I moved over here around 5 years ago, as I said, and I've given financial advice to expats in Spain for the last sort of 5 years. Understanding really, as I say, not just about moving over here, but also when you're here, what is important and what you need to be aware of. So that's a little bit about Holborn and about myself. And I suppose the first question that a lot of people is on the top of their minds really is, can you still move to Spain? Well, yes, of course you can. And I'm certainly not going to sit here and say, no, you can't. It's just not as straightforward as maybe it previously once was. I think it was around 1985 that Spain joined the EU. And obviously now the UK has left as of the end of last year. So what was once simple is maybe a little bit more difficult. Also worth bearing in mind, it is early days. You know, things may change as to what they are now, particularly, which I touch on later, is with COVID and everything that's happened with that. A lot of the untangling of Brexit, if you like, it's been somewhat delayed with COVID happening, and COVID has meant that some of the processes which maybe have been put into place haven't been, because there simply hasn't been a time to do it whilst dealing with everything else that was brought on by the pandemic. Firstly, though, what you need to be aware of is if you are in Spain and you were here before the 31st of December 2020, then you can apply for residency this year. You need to get a move on, like with anything in Spain, that you do have time restrictions on this, but if you've been living over here, there are a certain set of criteria, but you can apply for residency here. What I would suggest if you are over in Spain is to contact me, because as I say, you need to get a move on with it, but we're able to facilitate that. We've certainly got a lot of contacts through obviously Holborn and actually outside of Holborn, because as I say, a lot of my clients, and including myself, have needed help in actually getting the documentation and everything you need to get your residency, even whilst living here. And certainly if you don't speak the language, because that could be another issue for being over here. The second point to notice is if you are married to an EU national. So this won't necessarily apply to everyone or to necessarily a lot of people, but if you are, you can effectively get them to apply for residency, and you can effectively piggyback onto their application. And this really would be an easier process than starting the application yourself. But as I say, it probably won't apply to a lot of you out there, but it's certainly worth bearing in mind. For the majority of people who, like yourself, may be in the UK and just thinking of moving to Spain, or maybe it was on your plans previously, but COVID happened, what you need to now be looking at is two types of visas that you can apply for. And you may be familiar with this. I think people are getting more familiar with this terminology, but effectively there's a non-lucrative visa. And this effectively, when it's a non-lucrative, means that you live over here most of the time, but you're not working. So certainly for people looking to retire and spend the majority of the time in Spain, then a non-lucrative visa could well be sufficient. It means you're going to be here most of your time, but you're not going to be working. And that's the key to the non-lucrative side of things. Where a lot of people may be more familiar with, or certainly would have heard of, is the thing called the golden visa, the lucrative visa, if you like. And this is really aimed towards people who are now moving over here from the UK, and they're looking to work and live here on a full-time basis, or certainly for the majority of the year. It's not necessarily harder to get than the non-lucrative visa, but there are a number of conditions that you need to meet. Well, to be fair, there is a non-lucrative as well, but maybe ones that may be a little bit more difficult to meet than the non-lucrative visa, and I'll come on to that. But what I'm going to do first of all is really just talk about what has changed since Brexit, if you like, or certainly since the end of this year. So first of all, now you can spend, and everyone knows the 90 and 180 days rule, or certainly people think they do or know the terminology of it. The 90 days and 188 days actually means 90 nights, just so you know the days. If you try to do it in your head, it's 90 nights. But what effectively you need to do is, if you spent 90 days in Spain or 90 nights in Spain, you need to return to the UK for effectively another 90 nights. 90 and 180 doesn't just mean Spain, it means any EU countries. So for people to think, well, I can stay in Spain, hop across to France, and then it's not as simple as that. It's 90 days in 180 days. And this was never the case prior to that. So a lot of people who, and I certainly know a lot of people who have been living over here who actually never got their residency over here. This is what I've said earlier about applying for it now, is you need to be aware of this, because really you can't be staying over for this period of time. You need to be going back home. And you will notice if you come across to Spain now, you get your passport stamped, and now they are actually monitoring your movements, if you like. As I said before, this may change. So the way it works in the UK is, if you're Spanish, somebody from Spain, sorry, living in the UK, you can actually got 6 months before you need to make your visa application. So quite often countries mirror each other, or certainly over the long term. So where it is within 90 and 180 days, that may change, but it certainly is the case at the moment. But be aware of that. And an example of that is with regards to, for example, the driving license. And I know this from living over here, that with regards to living in Spain, you are required now to have an EU driving license. If you applied to get an EU driving license prior to the end of December last year, you don't need to retake your test or anything. You're in the system, and you will get given, you have to give in your UK driving license, and you'll be given an EU driving license. However, if you didn't start that process before the end of December, according to the rules as they stand now, is you will actually have to take a driving test over here in Spain. And if you know about the Spanish driving, it's a little bit of a worry. However, initially this was due to be the case. You had until June to change your license. It was the end of June. You had until to change your license to an EU one and take your test. However, they've extended that. So when it got near the end of June, they've now extended it to the end of October. I have my suspicions that that might again change and may increase to a later time, or it might just end up being that you can have a UK driving license. And again, myself, I'm still using my UK driving license. So for me, I'm kind of holding on to see whether that will change. But it is an example how things move on and how what is the rule at one point will potentially change. So again, be aware of that. The people without prior Spanish connection, there are obviously higher levels of administration now. So there are more hoops to jump through to come and live here. But as I say, it doesn't mean you can't. You know, again, maybe there's a sour taste with Brexit, but at the end of the day, certainly anybody that knows living and coming to Spain, that a lot of money is made on the tourist industry. And you need to be aware, really, they don't want to stop people coming over here. However, you need to iron out exactly how that's going to work. And as I say, untangling what the rules are before, and now classing us as being non-EU means that we have to be treated the same as, say, somebody from America. It's just sort of starting to look into all of that. But what I will say, I sort of mentioned it before, when it comes to administration, we're here to help with that. It's certainly, it's about having the contacts over here, not just what we can do ourselves as an organization, but also actually having the contacts of people that can help you to make the process as smooth as possible. So as I say before, everyone, please get in touch with me with any questions, and I'll give you my email address obviously at the end, and you can contact me. But anyway, we're going back to the visa. So we said there's a non-lucrative and a golden visa, okay? And I'm going to talk around these two types of visas. And I'm going to start with the non-lucrative visa, okay? So this, as I mentioned before, is for people who are looking to spend most of their time over here, but not necessarily work. Now, the first thing you need to know about getting a non-lucrative visa, so let's say you are in the UK at the moment, to start the process, you have to have 27,115 euros in the bank that you can prove in order to start the process, okay? And that just starts the process. That doesn't mean you complete the process. You just need that to start the process, or you're not really going to go anywhere with your application. Bear in mind, on top of that, you need to have 6,778 euros in addition for each dependent that are going to be part of your application. So that can be your spouse or your children that you're going to be bringing over there. So if that was a family of 4, you're going to need somewhere in the region of 47,449 euros to start the process. So obviously that's 27,115 for the main applicant, and then 3 lots of 6,778 euros for the dependents. So it's a large amount, and there are further requirements to this, but that's the main thing to start the process that you need to be aware of. The process itself can take around 6 months. It can be less than that, it could be more, but I think if you're giving yourself around 6 months, you're probably in the right ballpark there. You need to go to the Spanish consulate in the UK, and normally it takes about 1 to 2 months for them to collate documents that they need, and normally another sort of further 1 to 3 months in order to process and to get all these documents in order of how they're needed. You need to have things such as an address in Spain, clean criminal record, so we'll do criminal record checks. It's all part of the admin they'd have to do. Medical certificate, so when you come over here, you know, how are you going to insure yourself for the medical side of things. So there are a number of little things you would need in addition to this money, and this is why the process can take a little longer, because it's getting hold of this information. But again, I keep saying we can sort of help you sort of get a clearer idea of what you would need and the right order, if you like, to do things in. Once you are granted your non-lucrative visa, it's valid for 3 months and 15 days. Okay, so you've now got this visa. This allows you now to apply for your TIE card. And I've got mine here, actually. I applied for mine. It looks something like this. around a month or so ago. I did it slightly differently because I'm already over here, but I had to go into the police station in Spain. All sorts of communication issues. Even if you could speak Spanish a bit, it's still very difficult. So I actually had somebody come along and help me do it. But effectively, they would then issue you with these cards. It's a residency card, effectively. It has your details on it. You've got your own allocated number, your date of birth, all that sort of stuff, photograph. And once you get this TIE, once you get the card, again, that can take a time. That really does vary. It's hard to give a scale on that. But once you actually have that, it's valid for a year. So the difference with, say, my one, where you can get a 10-year, the weather issue now is only for a year. And then what you would have to do is, after a year, is to reapply. Now, that doesn't mean it's a particularly onerous process. Again, you might need a translator, someone to help you do it. But obviously, it is you having to go back and do it. But where you need to be really aware, and where it can be very concerning if you don't have the right level of finance, is that on that renewal, when you come back in to do it, you would need double the amount of money that you had on the additional application. So for a couple, as we said, it's 27,115 to start the process. But then if you're going to be a couple, that's obviously 27,115 plus the 6,778, then times that by 2, because you're renewing it, so you need double the amount of money. So a couple would need 67,786. A family of 4, you're going to need something like 94,898. So it's effectively double what that initial application was. So it's very expensive. It's a lot of money. A lot of people don't necessarily have that amount of money. So be aware of that, because obviously if you don't have that amount of money when you come to reapply, then you can have your application turned down. So be aware of all these facts. Again, I can give you some more information about the non-lucrative visa. If you've got questions around it, as I say, email me, but that is the main sort of pertinent points you need to be aware of. Although it's non-lucrative, although it's non-working, if you like, it still requires you to have a fair amount of money. And arguably that's because you'll come into the country and you're not going to be working. So obviously they need to know that you've got the money to afford and be able to stay here. And obviously there's certain investments that can be counted towards this, certain ones that can't. And there's so many different types of investments and savings. I'm happy to give people answers on what that will include and not include. But as I say, contact me and ask me and I can help you with that. Next off, let's talk about the golden visa. Now, the golden visa really is the golden ticket, if you like, for living here. It's very similar to having the card that I've got. You have, for all intents and purposes, the same rights as, say, somebody like myself who's lived here for years will have. First of all, though, in order to get the golden visa, you need to have 500,000 property needed. This doesn't just mean one property in Spain, unencumbered. So that's mortgage free. So you need to have 500,000 worth of property with no mortgage in Spain. If you do own property in Spain already, that can be used towards it. If it was from 2013, they can use that towards calculating your 500,000. What I will say at this point, and this is really important, is there are other options available with this. And again, I know people are tuning in particularly to look at Spain as an option and ultimately wanted to live in Spain. Absolutely. There are other ways of getting a golden visa by purchasing it in other countries where you can actually purchase for less than 500,000 and effectively get the golden visa that will allow you to have the residency over in Spain. And an example of that is countries such as Portugal, which is at the moment the hot spot, if you like, for people who are looking to get a golden visa. Because I mean, for as little as, this is a bit of caveat to this, but as little as 275,000, you can get a property in Portugal. But again, there's certain types of properties, so don't take it too simply on that, but that you only need around that sort of figure to be able to get a property in Portugal, which will then ultimately enable you to get the golden visa and an EU passport that will allow you to come to Spain. So certainly as an option, that's there. We actually have a Holborn passport department who specifically look at this, and they will give you an indication of all the different countries in the EU and what you would need. But as I say, Portugal is a particularly good one. And I'd say ask for help with this. There is a time limit on Portugal because at the moment there's some very it's a very good deal you can have going the Portugal route without having to spend a lot of money, but that will be changing as of the end of the year. So anybody who potentially is thinking of doing it sooner rather than later, please get in contact. It is essential you do that sooner rather than later with regards to that. Anyway, with regards to the Spanish Golden Visa, go back to that. You can apply for this in the UK or you can apply for it in Spain. So that you can do it either way. In my opinion, you're best to do it through Spain than the UK if you take the language barrier out of this. Purely that in the UK, once you're granted the Golden Visa, you actually get 1 year. It's valid for a year and then you would reapply. That doesn't, by the way, mean you would get turned down, unlike the non-lucrative in terms of what you would need. That's not the case, but you will have to reapply and get it renewed. If you apply through Spain, it's valid for 2 years. So it almost takes away that hassle. So I say there is one better way of doing it. Through Spain is a way to consider. However, that in itself can have sort of administrative and issues and language issues to do that, but just be aware of that. As I mentioned before, properties you may already have in Spain from 2013 do count, but do bear in mind, and it can be more than one property, but do bear in mind it has to be unencumbered. So it has to be mortgage free. So you can't just think, I'll buy for 500,000, take a mortgage out for 400,000. There you go, I've got the property. Not at all. It has to be without the mortgage. Okay. But what the Golden Visa does give you is that there's no minimum stay then. You can stay here as long as you like. You can work over here. It's effectively the premium visa to get over here with. So what you need to start thinking about is how you can do that. If you want the Golden Visa, there are other times, and again, this is without going into too much detail here because there's so many different caveats to this. There are other ways than property. You can potentially have a certain amount of savings, but that's a lot higher. Again, I can give you more information around that if you request it. But the route a lot of people will use is certainly the property route, and ultimately you've got a property here as well, an asset for yourself. As I said before, the other country options, and I will just touch on this one more time. Portugal and other EU countries will allow the Golden Visa, a way of getting the EU Golden Visa, if you like. We can help facilitate that. Holborn passports, we again have options of properties in Portugal for as little as 275,000, but that will only be to the end of the year because then the rules would change on that. But ultimately what it will do is allow you to get a property. The actual figure for Portugal is higher than 275,000, but there's little ways you can, I say, get around that at the moment, but that will be changing at the end of the year. So contact me if you want more details about that, and I can go into more specific figures. But really what you want to do is decide what way you want to do. Do you want the non-lucrative, the non-working? Are you retiring? And have you got that sort of level of savings for the non-lucrative? Then fine, that could be the option for you. If you're planning on working, then the Golden Visa is the way to go. I think arguably as well, even if you're not planning to work, the Golden Visa is a very good option to actually just have it, because then you're not having to show your wealth and what you've got in your bank accounts in the first year and then doubling it in the second year. So bear that in mind. So decide what you need. So next slide, I'm going to talk a bit about is residency confusion, and doing my job I do over here in Spain, you do get a lot of people that get very confused between tax residency and between your actual residency, if you like. So where you're deemed to be tax resident is where you spend effectively 183 days. If you spend over half a year, you will be deemed to be tax resident in that country. Okay. You need to be aware of this because it could impact on when you decide to move, depending on the tax years. In Spain, the tax years go from January to December. And to make everything even more complicated, in the UK, it goes from April to April. So if you can imagine, there's a kind of crossover there, that even though there is a dual taxation agreement between Spain and between the UK, you need to be aware, because you could be deemed to be in one country and then deemed to be tax resident in another country. So the timing of a lot of this is essential. So even if you are planning to move, speak to us. Let's work out a plan in terms of what the best timing is going to be. And we can certainly help you with the tax advice side of things and help you to prepare. It's all about, and this is the key to it, everything is about preparing and making sure that you have a plan of what you're going to do. So as I say, be mindful of the difference in tax years. Be mindful that they run from different months to different months, and be mindful of how long you're going to be deemed to be in that one country without sort of confusing people. Or you could sort of work out certain timings. Could I be deemed to be tax resident in both? But just don't get confused with the fact of where you're resident, having got a residency card, and where you're deemed to be tax resident. And this is why it's really important to organise your assets in preparation. Because with regards to moving in Spain, if you come into Spain and you then effectively are resident in Spain and tax resident in Spain, then the Spanish authority, the Hacienda, will look at your assets in a very different way to what they may be looked at if you're in the UK. So what you need to be doing is, if you're going to be moving over to Spain, is looking for Spanish compliance structures and investments, because that way you're going to save yourself from having a potentially hefty tax bill further down the line. In Spain, you actually have to declare on a Model 0720 what assets you hold outside of Spain. And how you're taxed on them assets is very, very different to what you would be taxed in the UK. And I'll talk about that briefly in a second. You need to be mindful of pensions as well. If you've got UK pensions, but ultimately you're planning to come and live and spend all your time in Spain, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it can actually be better to consider moving these pensions to a cure-ops pension, which is a qualified, recognised overseas pension scheme. And effectively, a cure-ops is effectively a European version of a UK pension. And it does have some benefits. For example, for people living over here, you can get a higher tax-free lump sum. Your tax treatment can be different to a pension in the UK. It's not always the case, it really isn't, but sometimes it is worth actually having a look and seeing if it's worth moving. I've certainly had a number of clients who've moved theirs, and it really has been considerably better for them to do that than to not do that. So again, we can look at your pensions in the UK for you. At that point, you're over here. We can actually do an assessment on that and see whether it is worth keeping them where it is, or if it's worth potentially moving them. And also, you need to be aware of other types of investments. And I don't know anyone that follows me on Facebook or LinkedIn. I sort of post about this quite regularly. But be aware, people who are resident and living over here in Spain, you might hold ISAs and premium bonds in the UK and think that they're tax-free. Well, they're not as far as Spain goes. They are taxable. They need to be declared on your Model 0720, and they will tax the interest and the earnings that you're getting on them. And if you think about trying to hide it, I will say be very aware. I say don't, but I've had a number of clients as well who think, well, I just won't mention it. But obviously, the way it is now with regards to the sharing of data between countries, you simply can't get away with doing that anymore. So for people that are moving over here or live over here, again, I'm happy to talk you through that and chat a little bit more about it. Right, next is just I wanted to touch just on buying a house over here, because obviously we're talking about the 500,000 golden visa, but yeah, if you're not considering becoming resident over here, and you are happy with your 90 days here and 90 go back to the UK for 90 days, sorry, you can still do that. And actually buying a property over here is largely the same process as what it was before and what it would be if you live over here. The same sort of taxes apply as to what they did previously, things such as your 10% VAT. I always use as a guideline on this, if you are looking to buy a house over here, even with regards to the golden visa, or whether it's just independently outside of looking for that, then I'd be looking at around a 12 to 14% uplift on the purchase price and what you need to be budgeting to buy that property, and then that will cover all the other fees and taxes that will be associated with buying over here, and that should just about cover it. If you're not resident over here, these are only slight differences. I don't want to go too much into detail on this, because I think for a lot of people, it's not really why you may have tuned in. But now that UK residents are now effectively considered to be non-European residents, it means that you would pay a non-resident income tax of 24% as opposed to 19%. And that's not a major difference. When you actually do the calculations on this, again, we can help you with this. You're talking potentially in the regions where it might cost you a few €100 more. It's not thousands more, but it is a little bit different. So there is a little bit of difference with regards to that. And with regards to rental income as well, you've got, if you're buying a property to rent, you've got to register it with a tourist office over here. It attracts 24% in terms of income tax, and you can't deduct costs off of it either. So again, it's slightly more restrictive than maybe it previously was. But again, be mindful of that. And again, we've got the contacts and we can help you go into more detail about your personal situation with regards to that. As I say, I'm more than happy to contact people by phone or by email, or to arrange a chat. It doesn't cost anything. I'm happy to help with that. So really my top tips with regards to moving, first of all, it's frustrating, but it's not too onerous. And what I mean by that, anyone who's lived over here, or maybe people who haven't got the residency, you will know that living in Spain is maybe not quite as straightforward in terms of the administrative side of things than maybe living in the UK. But you still can get things done. You just have to be a little bit patient. It's the same process for Europeans as non-Europeans. It's all about sort of being prepared and being aware. And that is the key that runs through this whole presentation. Just be aware. You need to plan. You need to plan. You need to plan. It is vital to be aware of getting the timings right. Put a plan together. Use us, for example, or use myself, and think, okay, this is what I want to do. This is my time frame. This is what I've got in place. This is the same as I have, and then start to work towards when would be the best time to do it. What is the best thing to do first? You know, are you looking to buy a property first, or are you looking to go and get your visa first? There is a timeline of the best things to do and do them in the right order, and you just need to be aware of that. Get ready before going, so get your plan together. Don't just turn up and hope. Trust me, it doesn't work. Even getting the card that I mentioned before, the amount of toing and froing we had to go through to get that card, because over here, for example, you have to register on what's called a padron over here. So when you live over here, you'll have your local authority like you do in the UK. You have to go along to the town hall. You have to register for the padron. You have to bring evidence of your address. You would think straight away they could do the padron and print it out, but no, you normally have to go away and come back in a month's time. Everything takes a little bit longer. So the planning is the essential part of all of that. And things you can do prior to this is get quotes for things like, what's it going to cost to buy the house? What's the medical insurance, the health insurance going to cost me? As I said before, registering on the padron, what do I need to do? There's ways as well with regards to healthcare. When you move over here, as I mentioned before, you need to find a provider who's going to give you the healthcare. So you tick that box in order to get your visa. However, when you're over here, there's ways to save money, because when you're over here, you can actually start potentially paying into the system and it becomes a lot cheaper. Put it this way, you would register with a local surgery and you can actually get your healthcare that way. So maybe initially what you have to do becomes easier when you're over here. Again, use us. All my colleagues here in the Spanish office have all been through the process themselves. We know the contacts, we know how to do it, and we know the best way to do it as well. And as I say, speak to us. We can help guide you in the right direction. We can help you with all aspects of your move. We've been through the process. We have the contacts. We've got departments here ourselves. When we talk about the golden visa in Portugal, we have a specific department here who can chat to you about that. Even if it might be something you just want to see if you can do, we can always arrange a call. It's obligation free. It doesn't cost you anything either. It's a free consultation. And likewise with myself, I'm happy to help anybody that needs that sort of help and talk you through the process. I'm happy to talk through your investments, your pensions, anything that you think will be impacted by a move over here. So what I will say, I haven't put a slide up, I don't believe, on my final one. Okay, so as you know, my name is Sam Daynes. My email address is sam Daynes, D-A-Y-N-E-S, at holbornassets.com. So that's sam, S-A-M, Daynes, D-A-Y-N-E-S, at holbornassets.com. You can fire any questions over to me. As I said, I'm such a complicated situation, and I can give you a sort of bare bones of it. Obviously, everybody's situation is different. And really, it's about understanding your situation. So you can drop me an email. You can arrange, as I say, a Zoom appointment or a telephone appointment with myself. It doesn't cost anything. I'm happy to talk you through it. If there is something with regards to looking at the golden visas in through maybe Portugal or cheaper options, then that's certainly something we can help you with. We have a department here who would be happy to chat with you and tell you exactly what's needed and in a lot of detail. I've even got some useful webinars, which you're more than happy to request, again, if you email me, with regards to the golden visa, specifically concentrating on maybe slightly cheaper ways of doing it through Portugal. But as I say, that door closes pretty quickly, so be aware of that. So I hope you found that useful. Please use me as a resource. Please email me. As I say, it's sam.daynes@holbornassets.com. I'm happy to help anybody that needs it. Even if you just have some questions, fire them over by email. If you want further information, fire me an email. If you want to make an appointment or just want to have a chat, drop me an email as well, and we can arrange a time and I can talk you through it. So as I say, I hope you found that useful, and hopefully we will see you over here in the coming year. So thank you very much for your time. Take care.